The Ottomans had already besieged Constantinople many times in an attempt to capture it, but every time something went wrong. Sometimes the Crusades got in the way. Sometimes the Ottomans had to deal with their own internal conflicts and rebellions. Timur's invasion of Anatolia, meanwhile, completely threw all the balances into chaos. But now things were starting to turn in the opposite direction. By the middle of the 15th century, the Ottomans had largely gained the upper hand in the Balkans and Anatolia, and they had brought their internal problems under control. In other words, the opportunity they had been waiting for to attack Constantinople for so long was finally right in front of them. And this time, there was a real possibility that the Byzantine capital could fall. However, the Ottomans still had two major problems standing in their way: Skanderbeg, who was challenging the Ottomans in Albania, and John Hunyadi, the voivode of Transylvania. On top of that, a new crusade was being prepared in Europe. While the Ottomans were trying to make their way toward Constantinople, Hunyadi was also preparing a new army to weaken Ottoman rule in the Balkans. The paths of the two sides would soon cross in Kosovo, and this battle would affect the future of the Balkans for many years to come. From Varna to Kosovo. It all began in 1444 at Varna. Sultan Murad II came face to face with the Crusader army assembled by Europe. After the battle, the Crusaders suffered a heavy defeat. Most importantly, Vladislav, the King of Poland and Hungary, was killed on the battlefield. His death put some of the most powerful states in Central Europe in a very difficult situation, but the Ottoman state was still trying to put things in order. In Albania, Skanderbeg was still resisting. Hunyadi, meanwhile, was trying to convince the European rulers to launch another crusade. He sent letter after letter to the Pope and the kings of Europe, but he could not get the response he wanted. So he turned to the only option he had left: attacking Ottoman territory. Skanderbeg, meanwhile, was a very troublesome opponent for the Ottomans. Because he had previously served the Ottomans and knew the entire region very well. Murad sent an army against Skanderbeg 3 times to stop him, and the same thing happened on all 3 occasions. The Ottoman forces were repeatedly ambushed and defeated by the Albanian forces. Murad now had a very serious problem in front of him. On one side, Skanderbeg. On the other, Hunyadi. And while all of this was happening, Constantinople was still standing. But Murad first decided to bring Morea under control. In 1446, the Ottoman army entered Greece and forced the despot of Morea to accept Ottoman rule. And who do you think that person was? The future last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI. At the time, he had not yet become emperor. But it would not be long before he would stand against the Ottoman Sultan in one of the most famous sieges in history. For now, however, he'd been forced to pay tribute to the Ottomans. Sometime later, Murad once again came face to face with Skanderbeg. In 1448, he won a victory at Svetigrad. But completely destroying Skanderbeg was very difficult. The Albanians were waging guerrilla warfare, while the Ottoman army could not force them into an open battle. Murad eventually left several military units along the frontier and returned to Edirne. But there was something the Sultan had not foreseen. Hunyadi had already begun gathering a new army. A new crusade. By September 1448, Hunyadi had managed to assemble an army of around 30,000 men. His goal was clear: a new crusade against the Ottomans. Hunyadi hoped that Juraj Branković, the despot of Serbia, would also stand by his side. But there was a problem. Branković was a vassal of the Ottomans. For this reason, he refused to join Hunyadi. Hunyadi, in turn, was advancing by conquering Serbian lands. Murad already knew all about this, and what the Sultan really feared was not Hunyadi advancing without help. What if Skanderbeg joined him as well? The Ottomans might be forced to face two large forces at the same time. For this reason, Murad quickly mobilized his army. But would Skanderbeg and Hunyadi really be able to unite? This is where historians do not know exactly what happened. Hunyadi advanced toward Kosovo in October. Most likely he was waiting for Skanderbeg there. But Skanderbeg's forces were unable to advance. According to some sources, Juraj Branković prevented him from going. According to others, Ottoman garrisons slowed down the advance of the Albanian forces. Whatever the reason, the result was always the same. Hunyadi was left alone against the Ottoman army, and on October 17, 1448, Sultan Murad II arrived on the Kosovo plain with approximately 50,000 soldiers. This was not a normal battlefield. Around 60 years earlier, the armies of Murad,